Alright guys, I got some genres now that I'm going to get into. I'm just going to base these films off their genre. These are my favorite films of this genre. So if you don't like these movies, well, I feel that they're the best of the genre. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about horror, action, comedy, and comic book. First off, horror movies. Guys, I absolutely love John Carpenter's The Thing, the original Friday the 13th, an incredible slasher film. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which I admittedly need to rewatch, but I love ultimately where that movie was going and how it was shot, one of the best shot movies of all time. But guys, you guys know the answer to this. When any of you ask what my favorite horror film of all time is, I always end up saying John Carpenter's Halloween. Halloween is the best horror film of all time for sure. It is a low-budget independent film that they made magic with when they shot that in 1978. Performance-wise, it's another horror movie that absolutely revolutionized the horror genre, the slasher genre specifically. It has such a creepy atmosphere to it that does not end. It's ceaseless throughout the entire film. It also at the same time set up so many other horror films for bad cliches, but it is not a bad movie by any means. Shots, performances, one of the best scores of all time from John Carpenter himself. Halloween is the best. Alright guys, a lot of you also love to know what my favorite animated film of all time is. I've talked about it before on this channel. I will be talking about it again here, of course. I feel Pixar's Up is one of the best, straight up best stories ever put to an animated film. My favorite DreamWorks film, in case any of you were wondering, is Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. One of the best soundtracks ever put to a film, ever. Beautiful animation as well. Excellent story. And I also, how could I not mention the entire Toy Story trilogy? Toy Story, Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 3 are three of the best films ever made, with incredible stories, one of the best trilogies of all time, for sure. My favorite animated film, you guys know the answer to this, I talked about it recently, it's incredible, guys. It's incredible in every sense of the word. The most beautifully animated film I've ever seen is Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is a movie that spoke so well to me when it came out in 2003. It spoke so well to me about parent and children relationships, and it's one of the best adventure stories ever put to an animated film, ever. One of the best scores of all time. Gorgeous, gorgeous gorgeous animation and incredibly well-rounded characters. Love that movie. But moving on to my favorite comedies, guys. Comedies. It's not my favorite genre. As you can tell, I've listed so many dramas. I have so many dramas hanging up on my wall. But my favorite comedies, I got a few of them. If I had to talk about, I'm just going to mention them. I'm not going to talk in detail. But I will say that some of my favorite comedies involve National Lampoon's Animal House in the 70s, best college party movie ever.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
Germans? Forget it, he's rolling.
I don't care what anyone tries to make. Best college party movie ever. I love Todd Phillips's The Hangover, the original Hangover. Incredibly hysterical movie with also very unique characters as well for a comedy. Very hilarious characters. Zach Galifianakis is gold in that movie. I love The Other Guys. Buddy cop comedies aren't usually my favorite, but in my opinion that's one of the best. I haven't seen like the Rush Hour or like the Lethal Weapon. I haven't seen like buddy cop movies like that, so I apologize, but one of my favorites is The Other Guys. I think Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg are an hilarious comedic duo. They work so well off each other and has some of the funniest laugh-out-loud moments I've ever seen in movies. I also absolutely love Kevin Smith's Clerks. That's just such a down-to-earth, accurate movie that's so subtly funny and has so many oddball, screwball characters that you just grow to love throughout the entire thing. Clerks is amazing, guys. I also really love, I always consistently laugh at this movie. 21 Jump Street is another one of my favorite comedies of all time. Laugh out loud, that is a laugh out loud, gut-bustingly funny movie. That's how funny that film is. The superhero comic book genre, okay? Obviously, I have to put some really great films in there, of course. Let's start it off with a bang, of course. Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite sequels of all time and one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Has a perfect story, about the hero, and the hero did not always have the upper hand in that movie. Let's just say that much. Also, one of the best villains for a comic movie ever, in that of Doc Ock. Score, performances, action sequences, incredible. Spider-Man 2.
Raindrops are falling on my head.
I love The Avengers from Joss Whedon. The first time we ever saw those characters, assembled on the big screen. Non-stop action. It's funny. It's hilarious. It is action-packed. It's got great twists. Loki is a kick-ass villain. It is just an all-around incredible movie experience. One of the best theater experiences I ever had goes to the Avengers. Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy is incredible. Batman Begins is somewhere in my list, as is The Dark Knight Rises. You know what? I loved it. Bane was incredible.
Of course.
My favorite, of course, guys, is Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Not only is that a great comic book movie, that works as a great thriller, it works as a great mob movie. There's great action sequences in it. Heath Ledger straight up gives one of the best performances of all time. Of all time. There, I said it. He is that damn good in that movie. That whole ensemble cast alone gives some of the best performances in any of these movies I'm talking about. The Dark Knight is flat out mesmerizing from beginning to end. That movie just hooks you and doesn't let you go. It's that great. Captain America: The Winter Soldier is another one of my favorite Marvel movies. It just upped the action as a political action superhero movie. It said so many things about political BS, and it's just so great. And finally, to top it off, one of my favorite recent superhero movies. It's up there with some of my favorites. It's easily in my top 100. Captain America: Civil War. Finally, after all of these movies, we didn't have some dumb alien invasion as the antagonist. No, we had real human characters fighting each other for their own beliefs with excellent drama, excellent action sequences, excellent team up. Just all around, everything was excellent. I've only seen that movie twice, but it's definitely one of my favorites of all time because of how it tweaks the convention of what superhero movies are, what we expect from superhero movies, and that is why Civil War is one of my favorites for sure, guys. Now, in terms of my favorite action movies, I couldn't just leave them off. Gotta give a few of these movies shout-outs as well. They revolutionized action. Of course, I gotta give them a credit. Die Hard. Excellent movie. Also, another movie that's essentially set in one location. Bruce Willis is incredible. That movie is just so bloody and just so gritty. And I loved the characters, the relationships that movie sets up. I love the antagonist, Hans Gruber, rest in peace, Alan Rickman. But I love just how adventurous and how exciting that movie is from frame one to the very end. It is just a hair-raising, high-octane action adventure experience. And you get all that with Die Hard. Plus, it's set during Christmas. Christmas, guys. The first two Terminator movies, Terminator and Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I almost messed up the title. Also, two of my favorite action sci-fi films of all time. If anybody ever wants to know, Terminator 2 Judgment Day is my favorite of the Terminator movies. It just did everything well that a sequel should do. It made everything better from the first movie. That is why Terminator 2 is the best of the Terminator movies. The action was better, the characters were more well-rounded, the excitement and the thrills were more there, but both films have incredible moments, incredible sequences constructed, excellent endings, great antagonists overall. I loved them. They're so 80s. They're just, oh man, they're just from a perfect era. I love those movies. I also really love, I know this is kind of like a spy movie, but I felt like throwing it in there. It's definitely one of my favorites. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is my favorite Mission Impossible movie. Straight up as an action movie, as a movie with awesomely fun sequences, with incredible stunt work, it's gotta be mentioned in this video somewhere. Tom Cruise kills it in those movies, but gave us the best stunts and the best sequences performances out of all of them. I was so blown away with Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol for sure. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for these next two, but I grew up a fan of these movies, guys. I could not leave them off the list. I had to mention them. But Transformers and Transformers Dark of the Moon are two of my favorite films of all time. I think they are incredible action movies. I think they tell really compelling stories, and I think that they have great visual effects. Yes, there's some humor in there that might not work. I don't think they're perfect movies. I'm not going on a limb here and saying they're perfect. I'm saying they're my favorite films. They're some of my favorite films. Dark of the Moon, in my opinion, has straight up one of the best finales in terms of all-out action in any of these movies ever. Okay, so I love it. I love them. They're total guilty pleasures of mine, but they're so damn good in the process. Next up, guys, I have to mention this film. It's my favorite international film. I don't watch a lot of these, but my favorite one by far is M by Fritz Lang. If you haven't seen it, look it up, check it out, watch it. It's incredible. I love what that movie's trying to say. I love the camera work in that movie. I just love the overall premise as a whole. It's one of those movies that I watched in my cinema studies class my freshman year of college. And I stood 100% throughout the entire movie. My eyes were glued to the screen. I couldn't wait to see how it would conclude. I love what it says about humanity and about child predators. It's such a great film, and it holds up so well nowadays. And also, since this is another genre, guys, I do love documentary films. One of my favorite documentaries of all time is this really messed up, tortured movie called Titicut Follies. Don't watch that movie if you don't like really squirmish, gruesome things happening, because, oh my goodness, that movie is going to mess you up for days. That movie really fucked me up, okay? And I also really love Super Size Me by Morgan Spurlock. I don't think it's a perfect documentary. I think it's a little outrageous, but you know what? It's funny. I loved overall where he was going with that It's Super Size Me. It also has a great soundtrack. It's Super Size Me. I love it. Okay, guys, I have a couple of other films I just have to mention. Like, I would feel bad if I didn't mention these movies. They just have to get mentioned. One of my favorite performances of all time, and one of my favorite movies that is just... It hits so hard in what it's trying to say about addiction. Shame with Michael Fassbender. It's Steve McQueen, director Steve McQueen's best movie by far. I love 12 Years a Slave, but Shame just hit me. Shame is literally beat after beat of a digression of this man's addiction to pornography and sex and lust, and I loved it. I loved what it was saying. I loved his relationship with Carey Mulligan. It is a flawless movie that has so much to say about that subject matter, and that's why Shame is straight up one of my favorites of all time. Also, a highly underrated film that you guys need to see. One of the best performances ever. So overlooked. 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams. This is his best performance to date, in my opinion. It is so thrilling, it is so gripping, and it's so, it's a great character study at a really twisted man, and I highly recommend it, you guys. That's all I'm gonna say about it. It's so great, and I know it is a little dated, but it doesn't matter. It's such a great story in its own right, guys. Alright guys, next up on my list, this is one of my favorite recent films of all time. This film spoke so well to me on so many levels as a person who loves art and strives to do really cool, really good things with my art. This is the tale of that ultimate person striving to do ultimately good and be freaking flawless, and it's amazing. Whiplash had to be talked about, guys. It spoke to me so much about perseverance and wanting to strive to be the best, because who doesn't want to strive to do great things in their life? Maybe I can't fully relate to the main character, but there are so many aspects of him that I could totally relate to. It has two of the best performances of all time. J.K. frickin' Simmons, man. Straight up delivers one of the best supporting actor performances in years. Nothing can compare to his work in that movie. It just is back and forth with Miles Teller is nothing short of miraculous and so messed up and so brutal to watch. It's gut-wrenching, that movie, guys. I love it, and it has one of the best finales to a film of all time, for sure. Whiplash is up there. Now, speaking of movies that spoke to me so well, another one that has done so amazingly is American Beauty, directed by Sam Mendes, starring Kevin Spacey. American Beauty not only has one of the best scores of all time, one of the best screenplays, and another one of the best ensemble casts of all time, but in my humble opinion, American Beauty stands out to me, and it's a movie I'll always recommend to people because of what it's saying about a midlife crisis, or about life in general, about the beauty of the small things that most of us let go unnoticed every day in our lives. It's so incredible. The finale of that film is one of my favorites as well, as other films like Whiplash and ones that I've just mentioned, because of how well it spoke to me, or how well I look forward to that movie speaking to me years from now when I'm in my 40s, 20 years from now, when I'm 40, hopefully married with children. I am going to look back on that movie and be like, Kevin Spacey was right. It's a beautiful, timeless story that is somewhat funny, it's dark, and it's also really upbeat at the same time. It's a great drama, has everything you need from that type of film. I love it. It's just amazingly done. Another film that has also spoken to me really well and is also just beautiful in every sense of the word, from the way it's shot to its screenplay, one of the best of all time, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is by far, not even close, my favorite romantic dramedy. I'll call it a romantic dramedy because it's equal drama and also comedy. It's great. I love the camera tricks that the director pulls off flawlessly in that film. I love the worlds that we were delved into in Eternal Sunshine. It's just so inventive and brimming, but at the same time, there's so many dark things to look forward to. It's so bleak, and it's full of despair about love. The film itself says so much about love and relationships, and about the strength of both, and how important both are, and how important it is for both parties to work together. It's a perfect tale of a relationship that is breaking down, and us seeing how it was before it starts breaking down. It's just excellent. It's excellently edited, acted. Jim Carrey's best performance. Kate Winslet, one of her best performances. I love Eternal Sunshine so much. Now, guys, I also have to talk about two coming-of-age films that I think are flat-out amazing. One of my favorites, this is one I probably should have talked about earlier. This is like top 15 for me, guys, for sure. Stand By Me. Stand By Me from Rob Reiner is the best, probably the best portrait of friendship I've seen in a film ever, of young friendship specifically. And it's such a wonderfully energetic, and it has such a great screenplay, and the actors, these young actors, have such fantastic chemistry with one another. They perfectly capture what it's like to be with friends who make you feel important, who make you feel good about yourself and about your talents and your abilities. It just is a perfect story, and that is why I love Stand By Me. Another coming-of-age story that I think did a flawless job about portraying a young boy and his yearning urge to find love and experience love, and his despair as he sees the harsh side of love. It's just such a perfect story. Oh yeah, and Matthew McConaughey's in it. Mud. Guys, Mud from Jeff Nichols is just fantastic. It's fantastic. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It has one of the best moments, one of my favorite moments of all time, when they're leaving the island on the speedboat. The snake bite scene. I'm calling it the snake bite scene. Flat out one of the most exciting sequences I've ever watched in a film. But I loved what it was trying to say about role models, and about young love, and about experiencing all of that and learning as one grows. It's so mature, and it's brilliantly acted by McConaughey and Ty Sheridan. I will forever recommend that movie to anybody who asks me for a good coming-of-age story. Mud is nothing short of brilliance on film. Also, I'm just going to throw this film out there because why not? It came out the same year as Mud. Prisoners from director Denis Villeneuve. I also mentioned his film Enemy earlier. My favorite Denis Villeneuve film is Prisoners, and Prisoners and Mud, I always look at them the same because I always flip-flop. When I made my top 10 of 2013, I said Mud was my favorite. Sometimes I flip-flop. I put Prisoners at number 1, sometimes I put Mud at number 1. I don't know what's wrong with me, but Prisoners, in my opinion, is straight up, again, one of the best crime thrillers of all time. I love what it said about morality and faith and a man's desperate search for his daughter, and how far a person can be driven to their extremes to find the ones they love. And that is why Prisoners stood out to me so well. It's a really engaging crime story, very mysterious, has you guessing from beginning to end, and it is fantastically and gorgeously shot and lit by Roger Deakins. It is nothing short of an incredible, gut-wrenching, just all-out invigorating film that I still can't stop thinking about to this date since I've seen it and reviewed it. And finally, guys, the last film I'm going to mention. How could I not make a favorite films video and not talk about this one? Definitely up there in my favorites of all time, for sure. Guys, it's Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction. I love it. That film was so groundbreaking from an editing standpoint of not telling a linear story. And that's why Pulp Fiction works so well for me, because if they just ordered it linearly and had it happen in sequential order, that wouldn't have been fun. Pulp Fiction is rousing, it's wild, it's violent, it is hilarious, it is so pop culture stuffed and bloated. It has one of the best screenplays of all time. Tarantino is one of my favorite screenwriters working. Still working. He better keep making movies because he's so damn good at it. Memorable characters, memorable dialogue, memorable everything. Pulp Fiction has it all. I have also seen Inglourious Basterds just recently. I would have just posted an old movie review for that movie by the time this video goes up on my channel. So, yeah, I also love that movie. Tarantino is great. I can't wait to watch more of his movies. Wow. There you have it, guys. That's it. That's pretty much it. I could go on and talk about more movies. There are movies I did leave off and just like the ones in the beginning that I just quickly yelled their names out loud. I'm sorry that I didn't go in depth with every single movie I talked about. That would have just been too long. I'm sorry I didn't talk in depth about Chinatown or The Graduate or one of the Coen brothers movies like No Country for Old Men, which I also really love. Like, there's so many other great movies I could sit here and talk about all day. In order to hear my thoughts about other great movies I might not have mentioned, keep watching me, guys, okay? If you enjoyed this video, I'm probably going to do an updated one of these a couple years from now. My favorite movies of all time, part 2. There's going to be other older movies that I have yet to watch that I am going to soon experience and watch for the first time, and I'm going to say, shit, I wanted them in this video. There are a lot that I still have to catch up on, and when I do, I will not be afraid to give you guys more movies that I now want to add to this list. And as always, guys, just thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching me. I really appreciate it. I was so happy to do this video. I love just taking that time every summer to do one video where I just go all out for it. This video was so fun for me to make because I just love talking about movies. As you guys can see, I got overexcited and over giddy about all of these movies that I talked about. I probably even repeated myself and said the same thing about all these movies, but they blow my mind. They frazzle my head. That's why I'm all like over the place. There you have it, guys. There you have it. You finally have it in video form, me revealing to you what my favorite films of all time are. I'm sorry if this video went way longer than it should have, but I had a lot to say. I had a lot to say about these fine films. They are great. They mean a lot to me. As a film critic, as a filmmaker, they have inspired me. They've spoken to me on a personal level, most of them, and all around, they're just my favorite movies to watch. They're entertaining as hell, and I love all of them. That said, guys, what are your favorite movies? I want to hear it, all of them. Let me know. A list. Give me a list. It doesn't have to be ranked. Anything. Start talking with me about movies. down below in that comment box. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm really excited to hear some of your favorite films of all time. What films have inspired you? What films should I watch that will inspire me further and motivate me even? What films am I going to love that I haven't seen yet? Guys, that's all I have for this video. I thank you so much for watching. You guys are the absolute best, and I hope you enjoyed my movies. Guys, thank you so much. I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't take the tie off of my body.